All right, everybody out there in YouTube land, it is I, Matt Yancic, the founder and head game master at the multinational corporation known as Roleplayer with a Thousand Faces. I am your humble host, and every week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whenever I have the time to do it, I like to bring you cool, creative voices from the world of role playing. And tonight, I am with someone who, now, there are a few people that I've had on the show before that I've been able to say this with and like really mean it and stuff, but like I'm with someone who I can't quite like pin down as far as like what she does exactly because she seems to do so much. I've had people like this on in the past, but if we can all just remain calm, I'm sure we'll get through this just fine. So I have with me tonight Amy Vorpahl. She is a writer. She is an actor. She is a dungeon master. Amy, what?
It's me.
It's you. Thank you very much for just hopping on the program with me. I appreciate it. How's it going?
Oh my gosh, it's going great. I am currently streaming in from my boyfriend's parents'
Ooh,
redwood property, so I'm
oh,
in the forest with good internet. So, I didn't mean to make you feel jealous, but here we are.
wow. That's actually that's cool. So are you feeling like super tranquil and calm? Is it literally like a redwood? Are there redwood?
It's a redwood forest. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
wow.
15 acres of redwood trees. It's so weird. It's one of those things where this is where we spent most of lockdown because why not? They also have a pool and a hot tub, no big deal. They also love playing games. So, we just had our little four-person community here for so long. So it is one of those things where I'm like, every time I leave here, I'm like, I didn't I didn't go for a walk in the forest every day. Like I
Right.
keep on having these plans like use the forest, be a one with nature. And then, my job continues and the internet is like not, we're here, we're in this like room as opposed to in the forest. So I always regret not spending as much time outdoors as I would have
Let
liked.
me let me ask a question though. So like I was in LA for a bit of my career as well. And are you working out of LA?
Home base is LA. That's where my apartment is. Uh and then whenever we can, whenever there's like a week solid where we know that there's nothing that
Okay.
we can't do, like if there's like, oh yeah, I have a week where I have appointments but they're all able to be on Zoom,
Right.
we kind of, f off to the forest.
Right. Because I was
um
going to ask like because I know that my basis for compare my most of my life, the Rosetta Stone of my life is Star Wars and the original trilogy. And all I think about when I hear Redwood is Ewoks and speeder
yes.
bikes and I thought, well, my goodness, do you commute from the Redwood
Oh, no, no,
Forest
no.
like on every? Okay, got it.
No,
Um,
no, this is like a bit of, it's not even a vacation, it's more like change of environment for a minute,
hmm,
because I'm still actively working.
right.
But I see we do have two folks in chat, Sebastian Del Castillo
We
and Imrain.
We do, and thank you for segueing into that, ladies and gentlemen. If you've watched my program before, you know how awkwardly I interact with the chat. So I'll be doing my best under the coaching of Amy Vorpal tonight to sort of interact. Hello, chat. How are you doing, Sebastian? It is good to see you. But he's actually saying Amy does everything, which I sort of agree after taking a look at what you've done.
Yeah, a lot of hyphens going on
And then
there.
and there's a lot of like little hand clappings as well. So
Oh yes.
from and I know I'll say this wrong, but I'm Rain. I'm
Imrain. Oh,
Rainy.
I think it is Imrain.
Oh,
Yeah, I think you got that right. I said Imrain and I think yours is better.
oh, thank you.
But
Oh,
hello and
cool.
back at you.
So then tell me about how all of this started. Is this how you saw yourself when you were a little Amy? Did you see yourself growing up to become this D&D YouTube Los Angeles Hollywood bigwig, or did you plan it a little differently than that?
I foresaw the future as a tiny baby and said, I know that YouTube will be a thing and I will be famous on it. I no, there's no way. I knew at a young age that I wanted to be an actor, but at that point, just doing the little school plays and playing Goldilocks and everything, I thought that's what that meant.
Mm,
So I did always want to be a performer. And then to the point where I never really did anything else as far as like if I had a choice or an
hmm.
elective, it was always join the theater program or the school play or the theater camp. Like
Right.
literally, I mean, from even kindergarten, our school did big, like big memorization parts for the little, like I really was Goldilocks. And there were only four of us because we grew up in Malaysia, four of us in the school. So it was a big, half-hour play. Although maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Maybe it was like 10 minutes. I have no idea. But yeah, like from an early age, I knew I wanted to perform. As far as getting I and as far as getting as far as I did in Dungeons and Dragons, there's no way. I even to this day, I'm like, oh, pinch myself because
Mm.
that's just getting to write for those books recently has been really I don't know. It's kind of humbling because it's like, wait, what? If I had known this was a possibility, I think I would have gotten too scared and run.
So can I
But
ask, was it more of an accidental thing then? Like this whole thing, you just sort of stumbled in? Were you trying to do something else at the time? And
it was,
this
yeah,
is,
I was always doing, so I moved out to LA. I did acting. I majored in acting in college, and then I moved out to LA to be an actor. But as if anyone's ever pursued a career in acting, you can know really quickly that means a lot of different things. You could
mm,
be a host, you could,
yeah,
do, now you can do TikTok or Twitter, or you could
yeah,
be a sketch comedian, or you could do stand up, or you can be in film and TV, but then you have to decide the kind, or you kind of, decide you might just fall into it, but what genre of film and TV and how are people going to see you and which
right.
niche are you going to fill? So that was, I fell into improv comedy and sketch comedy for a solid 8 years, and I was deep in there. And then when I kind of took all the classes I could and I had performed on the main stages as much as I could, I that's when the internet came a calling and Buzzfeed hired me. And from there it was a quick jaunt to other internet nerd sites.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even start playing D&D until I was 18 in college, but that culmination of just having a hobby and being a
Right.
nerd kind of just, it painted a path for me. It's not like I didn't choose it, because obviously I think it anyone who's tried to wrangle adults into playing D&D knows that yes, it is a choice, and
Yeah.
it's a lot of work to just even get the people to show up. So of course I always chose to play D&D, but as far as it becoming a career, I think I just got lucky.
Right. It's kind of interesting though, like, is this, well, I guess I won't really, I've kind of already asked that, but I was just gonna say, like, was it was it a case of where you're just like, here's the thing. When I started out the program, I said, look, I can't even quite quantify what she does because she does so many
Hmm.
things, and we have people speaking up in the chat. They're
Yeah.
saying, oh, she also does, like, she's a musician and all these other things.
Yes.
But you mentioned, like, you had thought when you were a little kid that, like, being an actor was like being in the school play or whatever, and just sort of being in front of people. And I mean, did you just sort of set out, you enjoy performing in whatever sort of
That's right.
form that may take? I mean, is that kind of safe to say?
Yeah, that's very safe to say. And then yeah, that turned into just the plays in high school and middle school, and then the plays in college. And then I had to choose, and I was actually going to choose Chicago to move there, but I met a boy and he was from Los Angeles, so I was like, F it, I'll move to LA. Which goes to show that my passion for dating someone was a little bit higher than my passion for theater. And then that turned into just whatever. Like I was just trying things on, I
Mm-hmm.
was young, and I had, there are these accounts that you can set up where you submit yourself for auditions. And so I was doing school kind of student films. I did some theater as well. And then I also, what I guess where I actually did make a choice, I wasn't just like, oh, I'm gonna just follow things where they lead, was I I knew I wanted to be in an acting class, but I was a little bit sick of the Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller scene study kind of um,
Right.
deep, deep acting.
Everyone's done that.
Yes, yes.
Everybody
So
in the
I wanted something new, and I had seen some improv shows, and I the closest I could come was like, I want to see what that is all about. And that, so I took improv as opposed to an acting class, and then that turned into sketch and sketch writing and sketch performing. And so I went full on comedy, and it was mainly just to revolt, I guess,
yeah.
against scene study.
Yeah. But I think that's a really good, I mean, this is my opinion of that, but like as like the teacher in me says, the idea of going against the grain um, teaches you, so long as you're able to at some point modulate it, like later on in the future, it teaches you like two different sort of extremes, you know, because I guess you're like improv sketch comedy or just improv is just the complete opposite, I would think, of Tennessee Williams. Every moment in a Tennessee Williams play is very precisely and exactly put into place, and he's like, you know, constructing something with it. But like,
Yeah.
do you feel that like you were maybe hungry or thirsty for it and now you're able to modulate between the two or
Between the two, I know I've never really gone back to plays,
mhm.
although I have returned to scene study. So with auditions, and what I really have gotten into is um putting myself on tape for
Mm,
no real reason, just because I want to practice,
mm,
and I have the ability to practice because I have people who will read with me, and I can
yeah,
practice a character.
yeah,
And I love it. Actually, I'm back to loving scene study. It's just that doing a full on play, I don't know that I don't want to say I'll never do a play again, because there is something there, but I think I'm more interested in doing film and TV. And the main reason is because I'm probably going to make some theater nerds very upset, but at the end of a play, the audience who came and saw it, and you, the performers, you have this shared experience, and that's it. And you walk away, and it is gone now,
yeah,
basically. Same with improv. But with a film and TV, there's a product. And
yeah,
right now I'm very much into marketing myself and having products to show, like, look at that, I did that.
right,
Will you hire me
right.
again? Basically, on top of the passion for it. So it's
I
like
I do
a business decision too.
I remember having a similar argument with my English teacher. I'm very sorry, Mr. Smith, back in high school, where I was arguing because I was a geek, but I there were many sub strata of geekdom, and I was very much a film geek. I went to film school actually, and I remember arguing with my teacher, my English teacher, about how film was superior. Oh God, I can see the subscriptions, all the theater fans just dropping right
Yes.
now. Arguing with my English teacher about how film was superior because you could get this exacting choreographed moment and it wasn't up to interpretation. It was the same no matter where you were, you know, depending on the venue and all of that stuff. Um, but I also think though that like you're saying, a play is just this ice sculpture that melts away, never to be seen, and is only
That's a good
shared
metaphor.
by 200 or 300 people for 2 hours, and you'll never recreate it, even if you tape it. Do you feel that? Did you feel that way about like your D&D games? Do you ever feel like when you play a private game? If you play private games, do you ever feel like, oh my God, look at all I gave up the performance of my lifetime, and I just wasted it on three friends on a Friday night?
I Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. And I think I feel very conflicted about that, to be honest. I
Uh
think
oh.
there no I in the way where my answer will be yes and no, because I think I am uh, lucky enough to have turned a hobby into a
Yeah.
career. So there is a part of me that's always thinking, how can I exploit this?
Right. No, I get it. I totally get it.
And
Yep.
and then there is something that is like this special treasure gem
Right.
of, haha, you and I have these inside jokes because we did have this private experience, and that is enough to be special. So so I guess my answer is yes and no. I have played gosh, I've played a lot fewer private games than I
Yeah.
have on a stream in the last couple of years, because I actually have realized that I do have a cap on how much D&D I can play.
Right.
I know there are people out there who are like, every night, please inject it into my veins.
Yes.
And I think as a player I could do that, but as a dungeon master, nope, I cannot.
It
But
drains you,
yeah,
I think.
it's a lot of, I guess, the, most of writing and directing is decision making, and decision making is actually the thing that can use up your brain energy the fastest,
Yeah.
which is something that I've read, and I totally believe it to be true. So yeah, being a dungeon master is a lot of decision making before, and then a lot of decision making during. And yeah, it can be tiring, and I'm just one woman.
I understand what you're saying, and I've heard this refrain from so many of, well, I haven't had that many guests, but from the several dozen guests that I've heard,
Yeah.
from quite a few of them, they've kind of lamented the same sort of thing. Like I I'll give you my little small duck in this giant YouTube ocean viewpoint, and I have noticed with myself that when I stream games, or actually, if I play a private game and I play a couple or three in a row, I'm thinking, why the hell am I not streaming this? Like, I could be turning this into like this is
Yeah.
content. And but
Right,
on the
right.
but on the other hand, I think back to what made some of those games special, and it was that it was sort of a shared moment. So I'm wondering, do you ever regret? Do you ever think, yeah, I'd really like to go back to it being a hobby versus it's now my job and my bread and butter.
Um, yeah, it is. That's a sinusoidal wave for me. That goes up and down. So I mean, it is like everything else is very cyclical. There are times when I mean, even this year, I was like, I have to put a boundary, like, okay, for the
Mm,
next 2 months, I'm not streaming any games. And if, a family member or whatever wants to play, I'm all in. It's like I've played D&D light with my nephews, where we're just all kind of making decisions, and I'm making them
yeah,
kind of roll a die, and it's
yeah,
it's just like the fun version of it, so that they'll play with me when they're older. But every single time I am down. Like, there is never a point where the nephews will be like, "Can we play that game?" And I'll be like, "What? No." And I have three nephews, and they're all amazing little kids. And I just will always say yes. So
hmm
that I will never get tired of. Is there a part of my brain that does want to exploit the hell out of it? Absolutely. But that would remove a little bit too much, and I'm already looking for ways to be a part of their lives. So,
yeah,
but with my friends, I guess the part of me that doesn't want to exploit it is the freedom part of it, where
hmm
I can be like, guys, I legit don't remember that. I didn't keep track of it, so we're just going to do this. Whereas on a stream, I do not feel that freedom, because someone is watching it with a fine tooth comb, and someone in chat will know the answer, and I have to be the person who is the encyclopedia for the world that
right.
I've built. So it's this extra work. And then sometimes the extra work is enough to, yeah, make me go, whoo, let me take a break.
Yeah,
But with my friends, I'm able to say, guys, I don't know, let's just do what's fun. Do you even remember what happened?
yeah.
Okay, cool. Then let's just all agree that this is it. I'm writing it down this time. That's what it is.
I can kind of get. I can understand that. I have to say though, on my own streams when I'm streaming my own actual plays, I will just say, look, I'm playing this the way that I play it with my friends, which is
Oh.
actually not true because I even recognize in myself, like, obviously when I play with my friends, I don't limit myself to a small little box and I don't like,
Yeah.
gesture based on that and I don't move in and out of the camera like I'm in Friday the 13th part 3D or
Right.
whatever. Like I don't do that in a normal game. But
Right.
there's an interesting thing. So Imrain actually just said, he's saying the whole product at the end conversation makes me wonder about how actual play videos slash podcasts may count as a product which works in your look I'm good logic. I'm not sure. I mean, I sometimes like I take I've realized that I sort of take pride in when I can make a game work as a visual sort of thing on YouTube because I feel like I'm turning it into something different. Are you are you always thinking about that? Like when you're playing a game or when you're running a game, are you thinking about, okay, I am playing differently. I need to play to the audience in this box.
I guess the short answer is no. I'm normally I am lucky enough to be able to count the performers that I play with as friends for the most
Mm-hmm.
part, and if not, then they soon will be friends. But so my main goal is like, oh, always at home, privately, my nephews on a stream. It's just like, oh, I hope everyone's having fun, and that's kind of it. So I don't change. I don't change much of that, and I
Yeah.
also prep in a way that makes me have fun too. So I get to be normally I get to, yeah, as a dungeon master, you get to build the playground you want
Mm-hmm.
people to play in. But the way that it does differ on stream is normally there is a time limit and people have, there are breaks, and
Yeah.
I do write a few more scenes of how I expect things to go,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's mainly bullet points, but mainly to make sure that in the hour slash 2 or 3 hours we get some good showman stuff.
You're hitting the
um
beats.
I'm hitting the beats.
Yeah.
I'm just, yes, so I want to make sure that everyone's entertained, and not just the players, the audience as well. And so the prep is just a little bit different that way, just because I know what the time frame is. And I don't like having 3/4 of an adventure done.
Yeah.
So I tried as best as I can, even though players will be players. I
Yeah.
do try to like at least look at and see if I can time out what is or how I think at least the adventure will go. And the other thing is the players, if I need to railroad them, and I sometimes will tell them, okay, guys, by the end of this episode, we need to get to the beanstalk, and I want that actually to be a cliffhanger, so maybe don't get there beforehand. I'll guide you. When I guide you, maybe just go there, and everyone knows at that point, oh, we're making content, why would I derail this?
Right.
I also want to contribute to the content.
Right.
Sure, Amy, by the end of the episode we'll get to the beanstalk.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'll make it very enticing for your characters. I'll give you all the reasons to get there.
Right.
But we would need to get there. That's specifically referring to a time when someone built a set of a beanstalk for me, and it was going to play the next episode, and it's like,
You're like, you
you know
don't build a set and then not use it. You're
yeah,
like, sorry.
yeah, that's too much manpower to not ever see the beanstalk.
Right. Right.
But I hope
Yeah.
that answers Imrain's question. I hope
I
that does.
I think it does, and yes, and I actually sort of see what you're saying here. It sounds like there's a meta level on top of a meta level, because like just playing a role playing game is kind of meta in the first place, even if you're playing in the privacy of your own home, and then add to that like a camera aimed at each person, and the fact that you have to hit certain, or at least, I don't know, if you're like me, you're thinking about like the screenplay Bible or the screenwriter's guide, or how movies follow
Right.
certain beats, and the fact that you're competing with an hour and a half movie versus a 3 hour stream, and you want to keep people's
Yeah.
attention. Um, well, speaking of off the rails, I just sort of feel like we just sort of, that was a great way to go off the rails, but I want to
Yeah.
sort of get us back on the rails. And I wanted to
Okay.
ask you, and I think it's sort of apparent from talking to you now, from watching your stuff and reading what you've written, and just sort of and listening to your music, there's a sense of humor and kindness, and like a very kind of naked sincerity to
Ooh.
what you do. And I'm just
Oh,
wondering
that's so
how much
sweet.
how much of that is real, and how much of it is actually all a gimmick. You can be honest. This is Role Player with a Thousand Faces. We don't have more than 3 or 4 viewers at any one point.
Zip,
You can be
fuck
honest.
you.
Right, exactly. How much is just like you said, you're just exploiting everyone and just trying to make everyone, just
Oh.
wrap everyone around your finger. Like that is compelling. I would
Oh
say
my
it's
God.
compelling and refreshing, right? I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
there's
to
so
be like,
much.
there's a mastermind puppeting my own like persona. Ah,
Talk
the
about
Vorpahl
meta
sword
on
you
meta on
see.
meta,
Yeah.
right?
No, I guess there is no man behind the curtain. There is no other Amy. I've actually tried to tell people on the internet, you may think you like me, but you're
You
not
don't know
seeing
me.
the real me.
Mm.
You don't know everything. I don't reveal everything. And 9 times out of 10 people are going, "Yeah, just sit down, Amy. Like, you're a human. We see so much more than you think we see." So I'm done thinking that I'm hiding literally anything, even though I'm
Yeah.
like, there's some information. For a while I'd be like, ooh, should I say that I'm single and dating on this podcast, or should I even
Right.
say that like I have a boyfriend right now? Like, and and sometimes it'll come out and sometimes it doesn't. And no matter what I say, everyone's like, we don't care. You're a human. We get it. Like, the
Right.
internet isn't crazy. They're full of people too. So
Yeah.
I guess they're no, I'm as far as authenticity, yeah, you get what you get. I had no idea that I knew I was coming off as a little silly and a little funny. As far as kind, that is a welcome. I'm very flattered that kindness is
Ladies and
coming through.
gentlemen, now I'm manipulating her. See?
Yeah. I I I don't know. I think it would be a little bit too much energy to try to have two people going at once, I
Right.
guess. And I've been on the internet as myself for
Yeah.
over a decade,
Yeah.
and I can't imagine going back and being like, that was me, that wasn't me. I have a blast playing D&D. I think that comes through. That's real. Sometimes I fake it to make it. Sometimes I'm
Right.
having a bad day,
Well, you have to.
and I
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm like, well,
Everybody
okay,
in life.
but we're leaving that at the door and I'm playing a game with my friends.
With that in mind, I don't know what this means. I'm just going to say this.
Say
People are talking about
it.
the beanstalk now. Is that an in joke with you? So Sebastian says, "I built this beanstalk. You were going to this beanstalk," which is the beanstalk you're talking about before. I
Yeah.
disbelieve the beanstalk. The beanstalk is a lie. So I think they're making gag
Yeah,
jokes
Nathan
about
Hook.
that.
I think that is a oh, what is that game called with the robot and Gladys? The cake is a lie. I am Gladys. Welcome. You are a test subject. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I
It's
feel
a
like I'm
puzzle
so
game.
old right now. I have not felt
Oh, what is it called?
this old in a long time.
Oh my God, it's one of my all-time favorite
It's like by
games.
Milton Bradley or Parker Brothers or something. Is
Oh
that what you mean?
boy. Oh boy. Yancek. Can I call you Yancek? It's just a
Yeah,
really funny name to say. Come
you can
on,
you can say that.
Yancek.
Most of my buddies will call me that.
Oh
Um,
my God. No, wait. I have to. What is it called?
okay,
Glad. Hold
everyone,
on.
let's stop the stream right now. Let's just
Gladys
find out what this is.
video game. Gladys video game.
I believe,
Gladys
ladies and
in
gentlemen,
the
this is an example of live googling.
Portal.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Portal.
got
So
it.
that I
Hmm.
think they're making a portal joke.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. I'm
maybe.
Rain and Sebastian got us. Okay. So
That's
Nathan Hook,
right.
I think, is making a portal joke, and I think Sebastian's making just a reference to the beanstalk that actually did exist uh in yeah, one game that I used as a reference
May
for this
that could
podcast.
be it.
I think we're all just like vibing is what I'll call it. I
It
think
could be.
you
Could
and me
be.
in the chat, we're all vibing.
I think so. I'm learning here. I'm just riding the chat wave, and luckily it's a slow wave and a small starter wave, and I've got like a very safe
You're
board
doing
here
great.
in shallow water. Let me ask you this then, okay?
Okay.
So what do you think? So I've been teaching for like 20 something years, and so there is a great, I mean, that's performative as far as I'm concerned, and I've sort of made this a few years ago, not a few years ago, like a few decades ago. I made this connection, and I said, oh my goodness, running a game and running a classroom are very, very similar. And I feel a little bit like you were saying that what you see is what you get when you're on screen, right? But how much have you sort of learned from the performative nature, say, of the game or of hosting something or of appearing somewhere? And how much have you sort of applied toward your life to improve your everyday life? Like when you're going to get a latte and you're like, I remember when I gave a smile. You have a flashback. I remember when I gave a smile on that show, and I said something complimentary, and everybody cheered. And you want to, how
Oh.
much have you applied toward real life?
Oh my God.
I know, right? It's like a chicken and the egg question.
Oh no. Oh my God, that's some deep ass psychology, because that's like how much of you is you, or and how much
Right.
of you
How
is like
much?
from performing.
Yes. Yes, because
and getting the accolades and realizing and the laughs.
yes, because I know, I mean, I know sometimes when I'm out in public or something, or I'm doing something, I'm ordering a latte, like I just said, right?
Mhm.
Or actually a hot chocolate, I have to be honest. And I'm ordering
Oh,
that,
that's
and
adorable.
I know that's 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 me. That's having a mother figure complex. That's what it does to you. So when I'm in line and I'm ordering that thing, and sometimes I sort of become aware of the students or the audience around me, and I'm like, oh, I'm using my teacher's voice right now in order to order something, right? So
Mm,
like to me, I feel a little bit like I've learned a tremendous amount about life and interacting with other people just from the trial by fire of interacting with 4 or 5 people, 6 people
yeah.
in a 4 or 5 hour session. So
Totally. God, I mean, that's a, I think I don't know, but I imagine a lot. I will say I was aware. The only time of my life I was aware of it was when I was taking improv classes, and most of improv is listening, and so
yeah,
that you can contribute to the story that everyone else is telling, because you you are a cog in the improv wheel, even if it's just you and another person.
yeah,
And it's like you both have to be building it together. So half of, God, I'd say actually 90% of improv is listening.
yeah.
And when I was aware of that was when I was like more deeply listening at a social gathering or parties, and I was like, this is different, like I can feel this being a
Mm.
different part of me. That was ages ago, so I don't know if I don't think I stopped growing, but yeah, i I think that's a really good observation. I would have to go a little bit deeper into the psychology. I don't know that I've thought about that enough to answer that question, but yeah, I think it's the most I was aware of it was when I was doing improv
Mm.
classes.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to ask you. You've thrown around the term improv and acting as if it
Oh
was going
yeah.
out of style, but can you come down off of your acting pedestal for a moment and explain to us, or your performance
I never
pedestal,
will. I'll
explain to
always.
us um, what are we talking about when we say acting versus improv, or is one wrapped
Yeah.
in the other, or
No, they're different to me, and the main difference is acting is when you are saying words that you or someone else has written. So that you get the main difference too is that you get there's a lot less leeway for enjoyment and also permission and forgiveness when acting and writing, because there is this kind of even subconscious knowledge from the audience that
mm-hmm.
you had time to write and work,
Yeah,
and you had time to rehearse and read these lines and memorize these lines and say them. Okay.
yeah,
With improv, you are writing, you are, as the improviser, you are the writer, and but you also are the actor, and
right,
you're doing it in real time,
right.
and no one has pre-written or prepared anything else, so there is some level of forgiveness. So if you say something untoward,
Yeah,
you in improv you might get a laugh. if
yeah,
it is if it is a bad joke in acting and writing, the audience will not be as forgiving, and
right,
that's kind of the main difference to me, is like you just got to be a little more careful, a little more thoughtful when you're actually putting something down on paper. But therein is why I like it. Like that's why I prefer it, because I'd rather work a little harder, a little longer to get something that I truly believe in. Improv is fun and is a wonderful skill. I just and I guess in Dungeons and Dragons it's pretty important, because
I would
half
say
of your
fairly
job
so.
is yeah, is just doing that and
Yeah,
seeing what comes up. So but there is a structure there too, which the dungeon master has control over. So that's the difference. I can't really say, I guess if I had to pick one, like
mm-hmm.
gun to my head, which you're not asking me, but if I had to choose one and like, F Mary kill the other, I guess I would choose a the finite version, writing a written thing and an acted and rehearsed and practiced thing over the other thing. But I've also been in I've also been in situations where the way that you get to the final version is through improv. So I
Right.
can't, it's there's a process that
See,
I
that's
don't know.
why
You cannot be denied.
I agree, and I think I think it's a really interesting thing about role playing for me. So like, what's funny is that when I started my channel, the only people I had to come on my channel and be my guests were my friends. So I'm like, okay, guys, we're running a game, and guess what? I'm running a game, and I'm streaming it, by the way. Okay, let's go. And so when I'm with these guys, when we started, I felt like we were playing kind of in this manner that was very much like what really happened at the table. But what's interesting is it kind of went in this direction where you were talking about earlier, and you're sort of
Hmm.
mentioning people working and cooperating together, which is sort of like the in reference to what you were saying about being forgiving and also playing and being like kind of a good sport when somebody throws something out. You want to sort of run with that, and you want to say, okay, well, that's not how I was planning it, but you know what? So and so just threw it out, so I got to sort of run with that now. Um, do you ultimately hope then, if you're sort of leaning towards like the more like refined stuff then, and the stuff
Hmm.
that's like prepared, are you ultimately hoping to sort of move away from doing it's funny because you say that you got into improv, right? But and
Hmm.
that's what you do now, but now you're telling or you're saying you're kind of leaning towards the refined stuff.
Oh boy, yes. I think here's where my view of it is that I it's kind of like whatever you have, you want the other thing. And right
Yeah.
now, what is very full for me is like I picture lots of Venn diagrams all coming together to form, the middle Amy. And D&D is very full, and
Yeah.
improv is very full,
Yeah.
and I would even say singing songwriting is very full. The
Right.
vibe, the thing, the part of the Venn diagram that I feel I would like to nurture more right now is writing short films, acting, that kind of thing. And it might just be because these other things are full and I feel
Mm.
like I have the freedom to go and explore that other thing.
Yeah.
Or it might just feel like this is a little empty, or I've neglected it for a few too many years. And but yeah, I'm drawn back to it. And I don't know that I don't think I'm ever going to be like, you know what, D&D, go over there, I don't need you right
Right.
now. I think it's more like, oh, full, oh, let's get this one full and we can all like coexist.
Mhm.
um so it's more that it's I don't want to get rid of anything. I just want i just want more. Can't I just have more?
No, I get it. I mean, but I think that that's a really healthy attitude, right? Because the idea
Yeah,
is that I mean, as long as you're kind of modulating and you're caring for yourself and all of that stuff, like
yeah,
I think the
yeah,
an average person or an I don't know, an ideal person is always
yeah.
thirsting for a little bit more knowledge and to maybe increase their portfolio of like tools and all of that, so their toolkit or whatever.
Right.
So I think that idea is, and then every once in a while you look back at the toolkit and you say, I haven't used that tool in a while. I think I'm going to pull it out and use that. Um,
Yeah.
how do you,
Before
as,
you go on, we've got some serious chat action going
oh
on.
my goodness, here we go. She's leading me through
I know.
uh,
I'm so
the
sorry,
chat.
but
That's all
I
right.
I really want to take time because it's popping off, as the kids say.
I see something here, the
Yeah.
Meisner technique. Oh my goodness. Do you have a view of the comparison between role playing and RPGs and the Meisner technique approach to acting?
Wow. Comparing role playing and RPGs to Meisner. I do you know Meisner?
I might know a little
Matt?
bit. They've all
Okay.
blurred together at this point. I know that there's all kinds of different schools of acting and whatnot. I'm not familiar with Meisner, so I
Meisner
apologize.
is
Can't help you there.
Meisner is very raw. It is almost unacting and getting to just the core of a human experience, I guess. So there is an exercise where words almost don't matter. It's just about the repetition and
Mm,
noticing how words and just the repetition and being in the presence of another person can actually affect you,
mm,
regardless of what the words are that are being said. And lots of scene work where the words are like, I am what, yes, wait, I won't, that kind of thing, and then you give meaning to the words. So it's really cool. It's I would say the comparison is Meisner is trying to get to a hidden truth, and I of a human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that I approach role playing in that same way. My main goal with role playing is fun, and I think the main goal for Meisner is truth. And unless truth can be fun, which I do think it can, but to me, that's a Venn diagram that is a little bit, the sliver of the two connecting may not be, may not overlap as much as I think they do. So I that's my interpretation. I don't use a lot. I have studied Meisner, and I definitely just go silly, silly, silly for my role playing games.
But you know, I can say this with some certainty, and you
Uh-huh.
dismiss your style or whatever. I don't know if that's what you're doing by saying silly, 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 but in my opinion, looking back, I think that some of the best dramatic performers actually get their start in comedy. So, for example, and I have kind of a small theory behind it all. I won't bore everyone, but the idea is that, I mean, if you look at someone like Robin Williams, or you look at someone
Yeah.
like Jim Carrey, um, the better parts of Jim Carrey's performances. So my idea here is that a person who is into comedy is more into throwing things against the wall, kind of a rapid fire, sort of like all over the place, looking at things with a certain sense of irony and upside down. So that sort of upside down irony is what it sort of opens them up to, when they learn how to control that and sort of keep it under control, they're more able to see the ironies and see the opposing kind of viewpoints of like their
Oh
character, and so they're able to
yeah.
bring that out. But that's just something my mother told me. That's something my mom
I
told me. I
do.
don't know.
I do like, I guess Nathan is saying that responding in the moment on instinct, that's very role play and Meisner and improv. That actually is very
But you know what's
comparative.
to me though, I think that if you're going to do that, you need to do that. And you were talking about this, but you have to do this like in a really forgiving space, because
Hmm.
sometimes, I can be honest here. Like my ideas that I throw against the wall sometimes are bad. Sometimes they're offensive. Sometimes they upset
Sure.
people. Like,
Yeah.
and that's the truth, right? Because you know, to me, as a teacher, I have to learn how to encourage my students to try and say stuff and then not shame them or make them feel bad, but say, okay, let's stop for a second and reconsider what you've done. So to me, like,
Right.
I think it is a lot about that kind of like, but I think it's also about being able to be forgiven or being able to
Man, you're
reflect
the
or
best of the best. An English teacher. And what grade or do you teach?
I uh, I'm currently teaching elementary school, but I was teaching high school and college, so like I'm kind of all
Wow.
over the place as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Shoot.
but anyway, let me kind of ask you this then. So
Hmm.
how do you think that a game master can help, or I should say, do you identify as a dungeon master or a game master?
Oh my gosh. Just you may call me mistress.
Okay, all
No,
right.
I'm just
Well,
kidding.
I
I have
don't
no
think I'm.
idea. Whatever.
I'm suddenly very nervous. I'm like, well, everyone, thanks for coming tonight. I'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Um,
No, no, either
wh-
one is fine.
okay, so what I was going to ask you then is, as a game master or dungeon master, how is it that you can help, or how do you enable or help your players, say, to work with? Do you see the game master as kind of being up on a flagpole and sort of helping everyone work together and helping pull out that performance, or are you just trying to help them have fun?
Um, a little bit of both. I don't necessarily think, that the dungeon master, I think the dungeon master is important. I don't think they're any more important than the players. And
Hmm.
I definitely experienced this writing for Candlekeep Mysteries because we had to write a mystery, and we also were tasked with giving the dungeon master all the information about the mystery, all the twists and
Mm.
turns right at the beginning when you're writing the adventure. So
Right.
that was like a herky jerky, like what my brain does not compute, because when you're writing a mystery you want to hide stuff.
Yes.
And the task was very much like, do not hide anything. You are writing a letter to the dungeon master. They
Right.
need to know
Right.
what's going to be revealed because they're the ones running the game. And that, the way it was presented, Chris Perkins said, you aren't writing plot,
Mm.
because how could you write plot without the main characters?
Right.
And it's like, oh, that
Right.
is just so brilliant.
Yeah.
So when you think of it that way, when you've got the main characters doing whatever the hell they're going to do, it's I most of the players I play with are performers, and they are very accustomed to going to knowing when to take the spotlight and
Yes.
when to shine it on other
Yes.
people. So my job is with them is less important, or at least it's less of, oh wait, now here's your turn. Okay,
Yeah,
like
less of a
everyone's
burden. Yeah.
less of a burden. Everyone's doing that same work. Where it does conflict is when there are two factions of players, where some are experienced or
Yeah.
they're performers,
Yeah.
and then some are inexperienced, or more introverted.
Yeah.
And then it is up to me to say, oh wait, pause. It sounds to me like this character really wants to do this thing, and you really don't, and I think you might pull this character aside and give them your
Right.
reasoning. So let's see that scene, and I'd like set it up. And whether or not, usually, it's like just a couple of sentences or some words, but it's like, tee hee, I tricked you into doing improv
Right.
and having a scene.
Right.
um I will take it upon myself to do that, just because I think, I'm trying to have the most fun I can, and sometimes the most fun is watching people interact.
But what's interesting is those two things that you talk about are very much related, right? So if you don't know who the characters are, and if you're writing this adventure, and the idea is that you're setting up like little potential things to happen, beats that are going to happen later on in the story. This ties into the first of all the idea of just sort of presenting it at the beginning, right? Because the game master has to say, okay, this is this big jumble of events. I could rearrange it based on if I see a quiet player and a loud player, and the loud player is steamrolling the quiet player, I want to get those two together, and
Hmm.
you're eliciting that moment and allowing that player to kind of shine in a
Hmm.
way. So to me, I mean, those are just completely tied together. Um, do you is there any way that you help them perform, or do you see like, everybody's got a
Yeah.
unique way of performing as a
Yeah,
player?
it when especially in like session zeros or first episode sessions, and again, most of these
Mm,
are streamed, but I will come up with some kind of gimmick where I'll tell them beforehand, we're going to open on everyone asleep, and I need you to tell me what you're dreaming of.
mm-hmm.
Okay. Or we're gonna do vignettes at the beginning. I'm gonna pair you two together, and I'm thinking this for the location, but you can figure out what you're actually doing. Just that kind of stuff, just giving them a little warning. Or I'm
Mm,
going to hand you at the beginning, I'm going to hand you this, think about how, like, this trinket or whatever, think about how your character would receive a gift or deal with this trinket, or what they actually think about it.
yeah.
And just giving them that first initial solo, yeah, like guitar solo,
Yeah.
is normally it's normally enough to, and sometimes I'll like comment on it, or I'll open up commenting like, oh my gosh, is this person really doing this, or I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, I'll just like, and then open it up for some laughter, just so we realize, one, we're not just doing theater, and we're not necessarily just hanging out either. It's like, here's a spotlight, but also, let's do some make 'em ups. Who's got, you want to say something about
Yeah.
that? Yeah, that was weird. That was funny. Oh, does your character say anything about that? Are you even seeing this? Oh my gosh, like, just kind of warming them up. And if it's a group that needs that every time, then every time, I'll provide that moment, or make just give them like a prompt, or send them an email that's like, hey, I'm thinking that we might encounter a fortune teller. Is there something that you think your character is gonna encounter in their
Right.
future, whether it's a week or
Right.
5 years, or do you want me to think of it, and we can figure that out together when we see the vision? And it's just that moment of just like, and now it's your turn, and now it's your turn, and now it's your turn, and now it's your turn.
Yeah.
That I try to include, maybe not every session, but definitely in the first one.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is that you're mentioning how you'll send them an email like
Oh
in the
yeah.
middle of gaming, or not in maybe necessarily in the middle of gaming, but between games or whatever.
Yes.
And I find that that's like super helpful for like priming, or at least it's like Inception. You're planting the idea in their head, and then you just step back and you like watch it unfold, and you're like, oh, thank goodness that they actually took the left door instead of the right, or whatever. Um,
It's also a way, yes, anything like that is also a way for me to go and like, and now it's your turn.
yeah.
La la la. For just a second, I don't have to say anything, and you
Yes.
are running the show.
Yes, that those are I feel the same way about like teaching too. Like I like it when my students kind of like erupt in their seats and they have something to come up to the board and sort of and then they start like talking about it amongst themselves. So it
Aw.
helps me out. Um, we have an interesting comment here.
Yes.
So Imrain is he's just on fire. I think he's literally on fire or figuratively. I can't figure out what it
Well, before you
is.
say Imran, what are your pronouns? We actually don't know,
Oh, that's right. No idea.
but
Never seen Imrain before. But Imrain was
yes, what are they
asking,
saying?
so has any of you had a game where the facilitator GM/DM was basically flying by the seat of their pants, no detailed lore ahead of time, and then writing things down as the campaign went down? I assume that you are prepped for most of your online streamed games, but have you ever run something just because everybody said let's run it and
Yeah, I normally do homebrew, so it's like not, yes, like most of my notes are NPC names. Like so I've got my
Mhm.
prep, and then my notes are NPC names, and it's like it's because the players were like, we're gonna take a trip to the library and read all about the history of this town, and I'm like,
Mm.
I mean, that's very cool. Let's go. And they're just trying to figure it out. So in that moment, it's kind of like, well, whatever. So, it's fine. In that moment, it wasn't the one I'm thinking of wasn't a streamed game. And I was like, everyone at the table, minus one person, I think, had been a game master before. And
Mhm.
I had said, look, there are some ideas I have. There's like definitely a history here. I will be improvising this. And if any of you have any ideas of how you'd like it to go, I'm very open to it. And so if if your character pulls out a book, opens it and says, what, this used to be, a prisoner colony based on, this town in the Forgotten Realms, and these orcs did this and whatever, I'm going to go, that's exactly right. And unless it messes with what I already have envisioned. But yeah, like, yes, I guess I'm Rain. There have been players who are way more interested in the lore than I guess I was when I prepped for it. And and on that same token, there was a different time when everyone was very invested in the deities,
Mhm.
the pantheon, and I
Mhm.
was like, oh shoot, that
Right.
is something that I just
Just
didn't
didn't
do.
think about.
So I had to do that in between sessions and kind of come up with uh the pantheon. Anytime I come up with a pantheon, it's always almost it's not tarot based, but there's a
Hmm.
thing in tarot that I like, where if the card is face up, it means
Yeah.
one thing, and if it's face down, it means another thing.
Yeah.
So I always include in my pantheon the light version and the shadow version,
Right.
neither of which is good or bad or evil or good or whatever. It's just different and
Hmm.
two sides of the same coin kind of thing.
Cool. Well, Imrain is saying that they are a they.
Oh, awesome.
Cool.
Thank you for answering the question.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Someone answered a question in the chat. It's great. I can't believe it. It's wait until my mother sees that. She's gonna be so
Yay,
proud of me.
Matt.
How do you
I
see?
do wait, I do
Oh,
like
go
I
ahead.
want to comment on the way Imrain answered that question, that they would enjoy
They'd enjoy
they. And
that.
it's like, oh, I would be delighted if you would call me they. And it's like, oh, well then you shall be called they.
Let
It's just
theirs
this
be known
extra,
from thence on
yes.
as they.
Yes, it's very a joyful way of saying, instead of just saying I am they them, you say I'd enjoy this, and it's like, great, why would I take away enjoyment from you?
Um, Let me ask you, is there any sort of prep that you do? What sort of prep do you do when you're going to play? So let's flip the coin over and look at the other side now.
Oh, okay.
And maybe as a player, what would you be doing as a player to prepare a character?
Um, I always make up a backstory that includes titles of names and places and give it to the DM because I know that titles of names and places can help. And sometimes they're like, oh no, I have this location, pick somewhere here or there
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. But definitely names can help, and giving external people from me some NPC, just like ideas for NPCs, but it's mainly to help my character too, because I have a thing where a lot of people, when they go to play role playing games, they want to be the last one standing,
Mm-hmm.
the orphan or
Mm-hmm.
the one that got uh, exiled from their community, or their community blew up in a fire and they were the only ones who survived, kind of thing.
Right.
And that I it just I guess I'd prefer not to do that with my characters because I would rather adventuring be a choice, not necessarily a last resort. And I I don't like the idea that my character exists kind of in a vacuum at this
Mm-hmm.
moment and is just now meeting these people. I would rather my character have like a full life, and now this is like another branch of their life, this adventuring party that they're joining. So the backstory is like, I don't know. It's very important to me, and first and forefront in my mind. And it helps with playing like, oh, this matters to me, or I love the background that 5e introduced of like what your character
Yeah.
and all of the like what your character did before they became an adventurer, and then all the bonuses that you get on top of that. So a lot of backstory, a description. I actually do. Sometimes it'll just happen in game, but I kind of like to prep a catchphrase beforehand just in case I have literally nothing to say.
And trademark it very
And
quickly
trademark
afterward.
it, yeah,
Just
and send it to the
cross your
Writers Guild.
fingers. Hope
Yeah,
that that's
exactly.
do your characters, for me, whenever I play, I feel like I've been GMing so much. I feel like I'm a lousy player now. Like I'm a really bad player. Like I don't know what it is, but I've been playing, or I've been running games for so long, and I so rarely get to sit down and have another person run. I just feel like I'm blowing it. I'm blowing it. Um,
As a player, really?
yeah, I just feel that. I feel that maybe because a lot of the time I play one shots because I run so much for other
Yeah.
people. Usually when we play, we're playing a one shot. And so by the time I feel like I've figured out who my character is, or I've figured out what my catchphrase is, or whatever my shtick is, by the time I figure that out, I feel like the game is over. Do you
Yeah.
feel like your characters, and this may be kind of too deep of a question or silly of a question, but do you feel like your character can kind of evolve over the course and you sort of find the character as you play successive games?
Oh
Or
yeah, for sure. Definitely, because I do try accents that I can't do a
right.
lot of the time. And so that can solidify, and but sometimes also that can unsolidify. But yeah, I think of yeah, evolution and like giving room for how the character is going to interact with the other player characters at the table is kind of a must. So as much as I write the backstory, it's also like, well, I also just want to leave it open because
Right.
someone else might take this role, and then I would be a great, like if they want to be the leader, and then I would be a great number two, and I've got this point of view and that point of view. And it's yeah, I think evolution I don't think would happen if you were just playing in your head alone, but with the other players and their points of view, I think it's really, yeah, I think it's pretty natural. And yeah, I would be, I think anyone would be remiss if they tried to fight it. I also think it's more fun to let the group narrative define what your character's role in that group actually is.
Yeah, it can be like, I think that's part of my thing is a lot of times I'm used to, as a game master, stepping back and letting the players kind of play. And so when I sit
Hmm.
down as a player sometimes, I'm sort of still in that mode, and I don't know
Mm,
how much I want to play with interrupting the game as my character might interrupt it or may sort of, blast into the story. And so I
sure.
think I've played a few games where, like, over 3 or 4 games I've sort of realized in the first game, this ain't gonna work. In the second game, this really ain't gonna work. I got
Oh,
to do something
right.
about this guy. And then I change it like by the third or fourth game because I feel like everyone everyone hates either me or my character.
Yeah, yeah.
When it gets
And I
difficult to
hate
tell the
them too.
difference, right? And I and I think I hate myself and my character,
Yeah.
like for playing this bozo. What's up?
Yeah.
Um, how do you think that players can maybe help each other and maybe help the game master to run a more successful game or fun game or cooler
Yeah,
story or
I made a whole web series that is just me talking to the camera about how to be a better role player at the table. And a lot of it is like yeah, just allowing yourself to be as creative as maybe the game master would be. So um I think in game I think that actually, you know what? The shortest answer is to come at it from the mindset that it's not about you. And I
mm,
definitely think that's true for the game master, but I think it's true about the players too. If
mm,
you can like set other people up or
mm,
help to set other people up or also just shut up, you might be doing just to let everyone else have a turn in a spotlight. Like you I think that's what helps is just to know when it's your turn to make a decision
yeah,
and when it's time to perform. Like I don't mean I guess if you tend to be introverted and you already do kind of hide, I guess is what I'll call it. I don't know that that's necessarily this advice isn't necessarily helpful, but for me who is like, ooh, can I play, can I say something, can
right,
I perform, my advice to myself is it's not about you. Let's have some other voices at the table, and making like improv, making the
mm,
drop in and saying the exact right thing after having listened is kind of a better gift than I don't know, manhandling a story.
right,
But again, that's for someone like me who's gonna just go.
right.
So
But
I guess for introverts and people who wouldn't necessarily do that, I don't know.
yeah,
Maybe try things.
yeah, I think I I will often as a player I try sort of not GMing, but I'll try to sort of find a player that maybe needs a little bit of help and maybe become a team and maybe when we walk around
That's
or we
good.
adventure like we kind of
Yeah.
I'll say, well, I'm not really sure what we should do, even though I have 85 ideas in my head. What do you think we should do? I like that idea. Let's go with that, even though it's going to get my
Yeah.
character killed. But that's fine because we're
Yeah.
playing.
Because behind every door is
Yeah.
adventure.
Yes, exactly. And it goes a lot with I think what you're saying about improv and the idea of listening.
Yeah.
And I think maybe finding as a player like finding the rhythm of the game maybe and it just sounds a lot like that's kind of like what you're getting at,
Yeah,
I think.
team sports. Like I
Yes.
don't know, my advice is team sports. Look at what all the coaches are saying.
Right. Right.
I
Um
don't know.
oh, we have a random question, but I like
Okay.
random questions. This is from Nathan. Any comment on horror RPGs like Cthulhu in contrast to heroic RPGs?
Yes, I have a comment. It is that I I guess when you're doing genre, um have watched or read at least one
Mm,
thing, like consume at least one media of that genre before you go, because it's just going to help so much. I ran an Asunder game, and Asunder is a new RPG, and it was very dark and gritty, and that is not my normal it's just not my normal genre. I would say horror isn't, body horror, any version of that isn't, and this was definitely it was dark fantasy, and
yeah.
even that was a little off the beaten path for me. But I had watched Apocalypse Now,
That
which is
is
pretty
kind of
dark,
dark horror.
and
Yeah.
I was able to like
Yeah.
get inspired by that kind of stuff. I don't know, you can find inspiration anywhere, but I guess my comment is coming from a mindset of, oh, that's not necessarily what I would consider my premium genre. So when you are doing something outside of your premium genre, consume the content and get inspired by that and be like, oh well, what kinds of things, and then could I lead my players towards, or what was that? Like I watched Midsummer recently and I just got down a rabbit hole of
Mm.
Nordic torture, and it was like, yeah, it's gnarly. They did a good job with that movie. It's all really messed up. So rabbit holes, the internet,
Go down
yeah,
'em.
go down
Go
them,
down 'em.
do it.
Imrain is leaving us. He says it's
Ooh,
1 a.m. there. He's you're
they're
in
outie
you're
five
in
thoughty.
you're in Belgium, right, Imrain? Is that what you were saying before? And that I'm recognizing the time zone because I was in
Oh
France for a
right.
while, but
Thank you for,
maybe.
yeah, thanks for joining us. I'm Rain. Have a wonderful sleep.
Um, And there's someone I feel I need to say this. Someone has just asked if you had heard. This is Wei Sun has asked if you'd heard of City of Mist, who I actually had the creator of City of Mist on a couple episodes ago. Wait, oh, let me just accidentally hit the like and subscribe button right there. Just look right there. Okay, cool.
Oh, I haven't
How did
heard of
that
City
pop
of
up?
Mist.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
No.
goodness. Well, if you want, go ahead and rewind a couple episodes there,
Okay.
and waste on, and you too can be informed. He actually lives here in Boston, down the road from me, so it's kind of cool. I had beers with the guy. So anyway, just a little. If everybody else can name drop, I'm gonna name drop too. But
Oh my gosh, amazing.
um, at any rate, moving right along, I actually wanted to ask you about the way that you're able to. So you had sort of mentioned that sometimes you have these quieter players, maybe that
Yeah.
are kind of not able to sort of speak up, and or maybe are having a tough time speaking up, and then you have the louder players. Um, do you feel like as a game master or as a dungeon master, you can kind of direct players, or is there a different word we need to invent for that, or
Direct. I think director is a really good word. Sometimes I've said referee. But yeah, of course. Yes, that I actually consider my main job. It's almost like being a bartender. Like you're just managing a bunch of drunk people. And that is kind of
which
what
is
your job is.
sometimes preferable to managing the RPG table.
Yes,
Sometimes,
yes, that are just
like I
adult babies.
can't tell you how many times I've been like at the table and been like, man, I wish I were just like at the bar throwing someone out again. It would be so much easier than this. But
Yes.
anyway,
Exactly. No, there, but I again, most of my players are performers, but a lot of times they just, some of them will need help with like shining, just moving the spotlight around and
hmm
being like, it's y'all two now, or it's you right now, what do you want to do? Combat normally helps, but yeah, I think in a scenario when people are popping off about what they want to do and how they want to interact, it's why I really love D&D, because there is a system in place for you to go, while you're doing this, what are
hmm
you doing? Are you
yeah,
joining? Are you not? Okay,
yeah,
cool. You can like get really in the weeds with even like seconds of living. So I really like that.
yeah. Um, Actually, Wei Sun has seen my City of Mist and raised me. He apparently has knows Amit himself. Thank you for.
Wow.
So, Wei Sun, if you're in Boston, you need to join my Facebook group, Boston RPG. You really do. Are you in Boston RPG? Please let me know. Like, if you are, like, I'm hoping now that the. So, to tell everybody a little story, when I first moved here to I'm in Cambridge actually a few years ago, there was this little thing called the pandemic that hit, and I was really
Hmm.
unable to make a lot of friends. And so
Hmm.
what I did was I formed a role playing group here, and I got a whole bunch of people to join. And so these people have gotten me through COVID. And now that COVID's over soon, now that it's over soon, we're hoping to like have some meetups and stuff. So
Oh, very
if any of
cool.
you folks are out in Eastern Mass, please feel free to join. Let me ask you about something though. I digress. I didn't really get to ask you some of the questions I wanted to ask you about. So apparently you're a bit of a musician as well. Um,
Yeah.
what do you like? tell me, a layman that knows nothing about music, um, what do you mean by that? Are you a vocalist? Do you
Yeah,
do
mainly I would
instruments? Do
say
you?
yes, I actually have training for being a singer, although that I don't think I'm not going to be American Idol or anything, but I do enjoy singing and I can carry a tune and I can do like I would say musical theater style singing where I play different characters and like use my voice very emotively, but not necessarily any version of pop or anything like that. Still, that's where I got most of my training, and I also did piano lessons early on. I don't play the piano now. Uh, I have like thought about dabbling again, but really the musician part of me is just a ukuleleist, and that's because just FYI, any one of you can be a ukuleleist. It is not. I I'm not even like downplaying it. It
Even
does
me?
not take even you. It does not take necessarily a bunch of skill. Not to say that there aren't like actual skilled ukulele players. It's just that it is such an instrument of least resistance. Like you would
Mm.
literally need to be able to do this and strum, and then you can play like just do this, hold a thing and strum, and now you can play the ukulele. So that's I came upon that just because I wanted to have at home my own at home karaoke basically and just play covers of songs that I like, because I like singing to myself, and then that turned into, so I guess I would say I'm less of a musician because I don't, as far as music theory, I'm constantly looking up chord families and what would I play for this and that kind of thing. But I do consider myself a singer songwriter, and you can write songs without actually being a musician.
What is the appeal for now? Like, I have urges in life. I have the urge to like sit down and write stuff. I have the urge to
Yeah.
play games. I have the urge to like go running. What causes the urge or the itch to need to sing or to need to write a song or to what do you where do you think that come is that all wrapped into the performative aspects of
I
of your life,
think
or is that it's something
why
specific,
did I
isn't
kept us as kids entertained all day was she would sing to us, and then before we were even talking we'd be singing with her.
right?
So if I had to go like deep psychology, that's it was just a way to connect with my mom, and then yeah, my twin Jenny and I, we just always were singing. We always, even it was when we took piano lessons, we were taking the piano lessons so that we could sing along to whatever we
Mm,
were playing, and it was a lot of times like pumpkin rolls up the hill, pumpkin rolls down the hill, like that kind of lyrics. It's just
right.
like la, 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 la. And it would just be like to train the fingers, but they would have lyrics there and we would freaking sing them. So I think that's where the urge came. And then as far as songwriting now, that began, I started writing songs because I fell in love with Weird Al Yankovic, and I fell in love with him, and I said I'm going to
Yeah,
be like him
sure.
when I was in 3rd grade. And off and on I would write little parody songs, and then finally when we did Saving Throw, when we started the Saving Throw show,
Yeah.
that started as a Kickstarter, and one of the rewards was a custom song for
Uh,
your character or for your loved one.
yeah.
And I thought of Tyler, who had written the parody song Just Give Me a D6,
Mm-hmm.
would write all of those, and then they came back and they were like, Amy, you write them. And
How
I was
many
like,
did you write?
ooh, I don't remember. I think it was about 20, 25, somewhere like that. It was a lot.
Yeah,
And
I was
and
gonna say.
that's when I realized, oh, songwriting is definitely doable, but each song takes its own time. So I gave myself the task of 2 a week, and sometimes I did more, but it was intense. Like that was a it was I basically gave myself a boot
What?
camp in songwriting.
So you had to come up with a custom song, like they would send you the background or something
Yeah,
about their
we
character, and
had
then
a
you had to.
questionnaire they would fill out. Yeah.
And s-
Yeah.
and and so then you're writing 20 of these things, and they're each 2, 3, 4 minutes long, and then
Yeah, I
you're
think I think by pretty early on I was like, we're going to cap this at 2.5 minutes. Like each of
Right.
them started, it was like, oh, I'll do verse, chorus,
Right. I'm
bridge,
gonna.
verse, and really go there. And then I was like, you know what? 2 verses is fine.
Yeah.
Like we're writing some real music here. Some of them I did steal chords. I mean, I think most of them I stole chords, and some of them I even stole melodies. I would just look up Celtic song,
Right.
like old Celtic song. What is that? But it taught me how to, combine chords and use chords as like the underbelly of what the melody's doing.
Yeah.
So it still was definitely a songwriting boot camp.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Mako Car Painting Company, but there used to be like in the olden days, there was a car company that would paint any car. That was their thing. We'll paint any car for 99.95, and you could get it like in 3 hours. Like you just drop your car off, and like it literally like almost goes on like a conveyor belt, and they just take it through, and these guys come in and they start painting it. And the funny thing is, a lot of people would say, don't go to Mako. They're terrible because they're cheap. They're not worth anything. But the idea also was that they would paint, like the average Mako employee would paint like 30 cars in a day. So actually, maybe, the first day on the job that car sucked, like when it came off the assembly line. But after
Yeah.
a week of that, you're talking to a like a 17-year-old kid that had painted 150 cars in the span of a week. So
Yeah.
suddenly, actually, they got really good. And so, what you just said kind of reminds me of that sort of Malcolm Gladwell-esque kind of
Oh,
idea of like, just
totally.
I'm gonna write 20 of these. What can you tell us something you might have learned from it, or am I just putting you
Mm.
on the spot?
No, I mean I learned everything. I learned I already knew song structure, and a lot of people are like, music, that's so bizarre. And it's like, no, it's not. If you think about it, there are really just two kinds of songs where it's verse chorus bridge, or chorus verse bridge, and then another verse and another chorus, or you can kind of get there. Or it's there's always a repetition somewhere, and the repetition can be like somewhere over the rainbow, where it's just the first line, somewhere, oh, da 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 da, and then the rest of the verse continues, and then the second verse starts as da 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 da, and that's the second verse, and then you have a bridge, and then you have the last verse, which begins again with da 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 da. So yeah,
So it's a
so I knew
structure.
songs. Yeah, structure was a thing to play with, and then a lot of songs, Celtic songs, church songs, country songs, pop songs, they are all CDG. You can really get by with
What is
CDG.
CDG?
They're just the chords. Hold on, I have my ukulele right here. I can
Oh,
tell you.
oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a live. I feel like a few chords on a ukulele. It's Role Player with a Thousand Faces. A lot of other interview
I
shows would just say,
meant I
no,
can
no
show
ukulele. But
you.
here on Role Player with a Thousand Faces, we give you
So
ukulele. Oh, here she
quick
is. She's
song
back.
lesson or music lesson.
Cool.
CDG. I don't I don't know how tuned this is, but
Sounds
that's
perfect.
C, that's G. So C,
Mm.
D, G, and you can go.
Oh, I get what you're
You
saying.
know,
So this is
it's
a very
like,
common kind of
yeah, if
pattern.
you go, yeah, if you do any version of C and D and G, it's probably going to sound correct to your ear.
Mm.
And most songs, if you can play C, D, and G, you can play most
So
songs.
this is like, I've wondered for years, like at the end of Back to the Future, when Marty is up there and he just goes over and he looks at the guys and he's at the band and he says something like, "Okay, guys, we're going to do this and we're going to do that and watch me for the changes." And then he just goes like this and he starts
Yeah.
going and I'm like, "How do these guys know exactly how to follow him?" You're saying there's
Yeah,
kind of like little patterns of music that you
that's right.
can follow.
Yep. So
That's
it's like, yeah, it's normally 1 4 5. And again, I'm not a musician, so but if you think of it as far as do re mi fa sol la ti do, you've got C
right.
starting at C, D, E, F, G, um, A, B, and then C again. So that's an octave. You have eight, right? Eight letters, and then each letter is like assigned a number depending on what key it's in. And so if it's in the key of G, now G becomes 1. If it's in the key of C, C is 1. And then you just go from there. So then if C is 1, D is 2. And those are the chords that you play. So 1, 4, 5 sounds really good to the ear. It's like pop songs and blues. It's kind of this, it's there. Yeah. When he says changes, he's talking about chord changes, or chord progressions is also what
Wow,
they're
I'm
called.
super impressed now. I didn't know I'd learned something about Back to the Future tonight. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually that's actually cool because I remember I watched I saw that in the theater and I remember like just not knowing but thinking it was cool, and for whatever it's been, the 30, oh my God, yeah, 35 years since that came out, 36. I had
Wow.
no idea what that meant.
There you
Um
go.
so do you have a structure for your role-playing games then when you run a game? Like these,
Hmm.
like you're kind of talking about there's a rhythm to the music. Have you brought anything from the music to the game, or no, not at all?
Wow. I mean, maybe there's crossover. I definitely do have a structure, and normally the time slot we're giving is about 3 hours.
Hmm.
So I will plan for an encounter
Yeah.
where people get to use the stuff on their character sheets. And I would say that takes up about one of the 3 hours.
Hmm.
And then I plan out about a total of 6 scenes that
Mm.
could happen. And any of those may or may not play, but but I can kind of assume that they will take 15 to 30 minutes. Each one, and normally I'll try to have one npc that is the focus of it, that I've kind of prepped and like prepped a
Right.
voice or at least a point of view for. And then the only other thing that is very important to me is environment. And I will always, that's the first thing I always plan, is just what does the environment look like, what are the specifications, what can I describe, what can they
Hmm.
find. Because once I have the environment in my head, then I can have a lot more fun with the character decisions. And like, okay, so if they want to hide, what they're hiding behind now all of a sudden matters. And if it's the
Right.
volcano, well, now they're hiding behind some like something that might turn to lava at any second, and
Yeah.
that matters. And so it's like, okay, well, I can mess with it a little bit more once I know what the environment is.
But I think you're also, what you're doing as a good game master or a dungeon master is you're giving your players something to play off of in that respect,
Yeah.
right? So you can maybe get them to do some of the heavy lifting. Like maybe you're not
Yes.
really sure like exactly how that's going to play out, or you have something kind of planned for that
Oh my God. There are
volcano and
so many times when I'm like, oh, this is a sticky situation. But I guess we have to start playing at some point. Maybe they'll figure it out, or here's a hypothetical. This is probably what's gonna happen, or this is probably what the bad guy's thinking.
hmm.
And then without fail, the players will go, this is from the thing that happened times ago, and he's actually connected to this guy. And you're
Right.
like, mm-hmm.
Of
Yes,
course.
that is how it is, and it is how it always has been. You
Right.
got me.
Yes, the
And they're just
deer.
like way smarter than me, and I'm like, yep, you
Well, that's
win.
that's kind of the embarrassing thing that I try to hide, is that sometimes I will maybe not even know when I'm fully prepped, or I'll have a feeling about a scene and I'm not exactly sure why. I haven't found my into the scene yet.
Yeah.
And like I'll be in it and I'm like I feel like I'm just on a treadmill, just sort of like running in place, and then my player, a player will say something and I'm like that's what I should run with, and that's where
Right.
when it starts going in a certain direction.
Totally.
Um, how do you? This is sort of a big question to sort of like throw at you, but I'm just wondering, how do you see like what sort of value do you see like in role playing and performance and all of
Mm.
this? I mean, I know it's a big thing, but do you see any value beyond just the fun
Yeah,
of
I
it?
I didn't I didn't for a while, and it's something that I've actually struggled with to actually find value, because my instinct is to go, this isn't valuable, this isn't even art, no one cares, why would I do this? That's my instinct. And I've learned after doing it for a decade that actually the value is, yes, it is entertainment, and it's as much value, if not more, as watching, what I enjoy watching on Netflix or
Right.
HBO, or like a show that I get invested in. It's like,
Yeah.
no, the thing that I'm doing is equal, is an equal art form to that. Obviously, it's on a budget. It's on a much
Yeah.
harder budget, but whether it is a private game or not, I think it's fulfilling the same and maybe even a better need, because it's a social engagement. So you're
Yeah.
getting friendship and you're getting experiences, and you're living your life and you're playing a game and having fun with these people. But then simultaneously, if you are streaming it, I definitely see value. I mean, this is a way that people are choosing to spend their times, and I have my media that I consume and I value it greatly. And I think that the people who are spending time with us when we stream are valuing it greatly. And I don't know what it means to everybody. I think
Yeah.
everyone's assigning it their own meaning, but for sure, the entertainment slash camaraderie or community,
Yeah.
that is for sure valuable.
Yeah, that is something I've kind of discovered about doing this. Like what's interesting is that there are people that do speak up in the chat, or there are people that make comments or whatnot, and I feel like however ephemeral that connection is, there's a connection at least kind of in that
Hmm.
respect. And I mean, I enjoy that
Yeah.
part of it. Let me just I'm gonna ask you something. Wei Sun is
Okay.
asking, do you have any advice for pacing out story arcs? So not doing a big reveal too early or making something too slow. I know from my own experience what I tend to do is I go really slow in the beginning, and this is even something I do in the classroom because I'm like desperately worried that I don't have enough material at the end.
Hmm.
Um, what do you do, or what could you recommend for someone that's looking to maybe help create a better structure for their game?
Yeah. Okay. So first you start with how many sessions you actually have. And if you have unlimited, I would say go in terms of 4 or 6 or anything that feels manageable. And this is how I do it. So let's say I have 4 sessions. I would say each session, and if it's 3 hours, around 3 hours, I would say each one gets its own environment, which means I'm planning out 4 larger environments. Then I break it down into segments, like uh I guess half-hour segments, just because in my mind scenes slash
Right,
encounters can be half hours, and planning 6 things, you're still not going to get to them.
right,
So I would plan out 6 scenes for that environment. Also, whatever the big bad's doing and where you think climactic moments are going to go, but mainly 6 scenes per thing. And in each of those, you also have the freedom. And normally what I do is say, no, I'm only going to get to 5. So I'm going to
hmm
plan out 5, because one of those is the wild card that the players will mess up and we need an extra half hour for whatever.
right,
Same thing with sessions. I mean, 4 you can kind of manage, but if you go to 6, even, you might just leave one blank. Like, don't
mm,
plan a total of 6. So I guess I have that in my head, like leave one blank. And then as far as I see, the question is no big reveals or whatever. I would say I would say definitely lean towards the end. So if you're thinking in terms of 4 or 6, lean towards the end. But then on top of that, if you have unlimited, maybe one big reveal per character.
hmm
And I think that's plenty. And
Oh,
then that
right,
person gets their like
yeah,
moment of like, well, you didn't know this, but I'm actually this person and I was this and now I'm this. And everyone can go, oh my God.
right,
And you're not doing that too often. But I think one character reveal or one huge twist of an
right,
entire campaign or arc is plenty for one session.
yeah. The M. Night Shyamalan moment. Let's
Yeah,
keep it to one
yeah.
per session. Um,
Yeah, and I would say if you're doing unlimited, actually put a cap on it, or say we're going to do 8 weeks, and the eighth week will be a big finale.
mm,
Because when you break it up like that, that's like that's when the character is going to go, really, well, I sacrifice myself, because
right,
then they're thinking of it like
yeah,
a finale, and
yeah,
then they're making bigger swings than I think people would if they also were in the brain space of this is unlimited.
yeah, and
So you want to get those big moments, even if someone dies. because you can always resurrect.
Yeah.
There are ways to not die in D&D, but you get the big swings, and I love that.
What's interesting is you're sort of revealing like the way that when we all go to watch movies or watch a TV show, we all kind of internally and we've intuited like there's a rhythm
Yeah.
to it, and the idea is how well the, you know, how much your suspension or your disbelief is suspended and how deep you get into it. And so you've kind of followed the rhythms naturally. But it's interesting that you would kind of bring up the idea of sort of creating those rhythms and making people aware of those rhythms so that over the
Yeah.
course of these games, they will maybe naturally fall into them.
They will. Yeah, it's like people are like, "Man, I can't be a dungeon master. I can't tell stories." And I'm like, "Bitch, have you seen a TV show? You can tell a story." Like we all know, like we all understand, even if we don't know like the way you might teach your English class,
Mm.
the climax and the exposition, all, even if we don't know all the terms and all the beats, we all are storytellers. We can all tell a story. It is in us. If you had to gun to your head tell a story, you would know exactly how to tell it. I promise you.
Can you tell us, because I know you've been very kind with your time and we're sort of running out here, and what I wanted to sort of ask you here about was any projects coming up. I know you have a Kickstarter coming up soon. It is vaguely related to music, which I thought it was awesome that you were able to bring your ukulele in. Can you tell us a little bit about that? This is
Yeah.
is this for you sort of a new thing, but not well, maybe for us as viewers and listeners it might be new, but maybe for you,
Yeah.
of course, this is a big part of your life. But can you tell us a little bit about your new Kickstarter?
Yeah, sure. So the Kickstarter is my second solo album. My
Hmm.
first solo album is called Songs in the Key of D&D. And I think you might be familiar with the song, The Dungeon Master's Lament. That's
Yes.
the one that kind of got, I don't want to say went viral, but it's the
Right.
one that we really focused on because
Yes.
it was very relatable. And we made a music video with Saving Throw. So that came from the 10 songs on, it was one of the 10 songs on Songs in the Key of D&D. And then this other one is just kind of, I've been playing songs and music again. I definitely did, you're not wrong, I stepped away from it for a minute to do other things, but
Hmm.
it's back in
Right.
business. And
What
I
was the
just
inspiration for it then? What like sort of fired your interest?
COVID-19 and being very bored, and
Yes.
realizing, we were all inspired to just do things that made us happy. And I realized, gosh, the ukulele is magical. It makes me very happy. The end. It was just a way to, it was a self-care kind of thing. And then once again, I- if you play the ukulele, like it's really low barrier to entry.
Hmm.
Your fingers can handle it. Like there's a lot that you as a human can handle, just playing the ukulele. And my go-to is like, oh, when I start playing the ukulele, I play other songs come into my head. So I was writing new songs and kind of putting those together and realizing, like I might have something
You,
here.
yeah.
And then in January, I was like, I might want to kickstart this.
Right.
And I started taking a Kickstarter class and like seeing if
There
I
are
did have something.
excuse me, there are classes in Kickstarter. You are
There's
from
a
Los Angeles.
I know. Well, yes, like how do you, I mean, there's an art to crowdfunding, because
Yeah.
a lot of people think, oh, I'll just put it up there, but a lot of my time has actually been spent reminding my audience that yes, in fact, I do play music.
Hmm.
Because like you said, you play music. It's like Amy does D&D. We all know that, but I have to remind people, oh, I also do this other thing. This is like another part of my Venn diagram of Amy. So it's got its own strategy, and I've been
Mm.
like kind of working the strategy since January. And now we'll just see. It launches August 31st. It's I think it's a 23-day Kickstarter, so it'll end on September 23rd. And
Oh,
we're yeah, I'm just looking to raise the money to mainly make the album and the merch, and then also ship those and make that
right.
possible to do. So the merch is going to be an enamel pin of a Vorpal sword, or my interpretation of a Vorpal
Let
sword.
me ask you, are you is your last name really Vorpal? Is that your
Yes.
stage name? How did that happen?
I don't know.
It just happened.
My so if you look up Vorpal,
Yeah.
it means boundary marker in old German. And I think at some point in old archaic Germany, someone said that this was the boundary marker and someone mistook it as that's the name of the land, which means that's the name of the people. And now we're Vorpals. Again, mine has the H in it,
Right.
not, but it is like very lucky. Like it's
I
just a
was thinking for
coincidence.
sure it was like a stage name or something.
I
I was
know
like,
that it's like one of those things I'm never going to change my name because it's so cool.
that I've been wondering about that. I've been thinking about that, and I'm like, I have no clue what the heck how that happened. But that's
Yeah.
pretty perfect.
It's just a coincidence. My
Yeah.
entire family is named Vorpahl. There are tons of Vorpals
Are
out
are
there.
they
And
all role players?
nope, I'm
No.
the only
Okay.
one who picked up that mantle, but
Got it.
I've exploited that name backwards and forwards. And yeah, so anyway, there are there are pins, there are dice. At some point during the Kickstarter, I'm gonna unlock having like D&D sessions with me, but I'm not
Oh,
gonna
cool.
start out with that. And then obviously you can get the music. And
Hmm.
then so if you don't mind, I'm gonna tell people where they can find
No,
it or at least
not at
follow
all.
it for
And
now.
I will put it like like after I get off, I'll edit this and I'll put the links in the description below. But please do,
Okay,
please.
thank you. So you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Vorpahl Sword, and that's Vorpahl Sword. And then on Twitter, it's my pinned tweet, and you can
Hmm.
click on that and go ahead and follow the Kickstarter there because it's not live yet. And on Instagram, it's my link in my bio,
Hmm.
same thing. You can get there. The other place you can go that I will keep very updated is amyvorpahl.com. And that is my very beautiful website that I put together this year as part of the Kickstarting class. And it's where you can go. You can, if you subscribe to my newsletters, which are really just once a month, you will be able to get 2 free songs from Songs in the Key of D&D. And one of them is the DM's Lament. So you can
Cool.
just have that.
Nice.
You're so yeah, all of those ways are ways you can kind of follow the Kickstarter.
Yeah, and I believe I have most of those in the description. I just don't have the Kickstarter link, so I'll be
Okay,
sure to
cool.
get that one up.
Oh,
And
thank you.
what's funny is Sebastian has just said when you announced it, he was just saying, "Woo, more Amy music, such a
Yay.
fun music video." I wanted to say that Amy had sent me a sample of her songs, and it hadn't clicked with me, but when you said Weird Al Yankovic, that's very much the description, partially that I went in with for a few of them. And what's funny is I was just singing "I Lost on Jeopardy" on a trip to Maine, actually, last
I think Weird
weekend.
Al is the great equalizer. We're
He's
all connected.
yes, I love the guy. Actually,
Yes.
he deserves a medal for life, I think.
Yes. Yes. Hardcore agree.
With that in mind, Sebastian and Amy, so what I did was I took one of your songs, I took a small sample of it, and I used some of your headshots to just sort of lead us out here. So
Oh, yay.
we're gonna
Is this the song did I send you? You found me?
yes, it's the one that you asked me
Okay.
to
So this is
use.
going to be maybe I think the first time anyone has ever heard this song on the internet.
Well, if I had known that, I would have worn a tuxedo. My goodness.
It's
Is it
going to
really?
be yeah,
I
it's
didn't
going to
think.
be on the album, but this will be
Oh,
the first time it's anywhere
oh my
released
God.
anywhere.
If I
It's
had known that,
very
see,
cool.
nobody ever uses me for like first time releases of anything. So I had just assumed this had been like a dead horse that had been beaten several times over. That's
You are very self-deprecating. This is a
ah,
great interview show and you're a
it's
great host.
oh, thank you very much. It's my charm, right?
Yes.
Um, so at any rate, I slapped something together, and it's just essentially it's some headshots from Amy's website, and so we're gonna head out with that. But I just want to say to all of you that have been watching, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all of your comments. I want to apologize. I am still getting my chat interaction legs. However, Amy has been helping me through it for the last hour and a half. So, of course, lastly, I want to thank you very much, Amy, for coming on the show. I was telling her before, I'm always shocked and surprised that people are willing to come on cold without really knowing me much, and I appreciate you putting your trust in me and the show. Thank you so much. And I know I don't even have to tell you good luck with your stuff in the future because you're already
Thank you.
there at that point where like
Thank you.
people consider it to be lucky. So if you like what you've seen, please do like and subscribe. Thank you all very much for tuning in. We'll be back probably next week. No, definitely next week with another face of a role player. And here we go with Amy's, I guess, world premiere, which now I feel bad about.
Yes, world premiere. Yes, yes,
There
yes.
we go, everybody. Have a very good night.
You're sitting in your gaming shop, it's just another